Hello everyone, this is Erik, the Asian movie enthusiast, and this is my review of First Love, also known as Hatsukoi, a Japanese crime thriller from 2019 that was directed by Takashi Miike. Now, I just so happened to be in New York City this past weekend for the purposes of attending not one, but two Band-Maid concerts, and I noticed that this movie was playing in a theater nearby, so I checked it out. Now, our main character is a young boxer who is diagnosed with a brain tumor, which leaves him rather hopeless in life. Well, he crosses paths with a young girl who is forced into prostitution and drugs, and he decides to help her out. The problem is that these two get framed for stealing drugs from a yakuza group, which forces them to run and fight for their lives. Now, there are a lot of things about this movie that I really like. First, I'm a sucker for films that take place over the course of one evening. I like movies that take place entirely during the night because there's a certain atmosphere that goes along with it. Also, this provides some nice visuals related to Japanese urban nightlife, under the lights and everything, so I really like the aesthetics of this film. Second, Takashi Miike sets up multiple characters and conflicts, but it's not easy to always predict exactly how things are going to play out. You know that people are going to be gunning for one another, okay? They're going to be going after people here because there's a lot of conflicts at play. But since each character has multiple enemies, you wonder which characters are going to tangle with one another and who's going to survive when they fight. They're like pieces on a chessboard in that respect. Also, in some situations, a few of the characters have no idea what's going on. For example, our two lead protagonists, when they're initially framed for stealing drugs from the yakuza, they're completely unaware of this for a period of time throughout the film. So you have all these gangsters trying to find them and go after them, and our protagonists have no idea the kind of trouble that's headed their way. So this intentional information gap happens quite a bit in the film to a variety of characters, and I really like how First Love was written in that respect. And Miike's ability to kind of balance all these characters, set them all up, and then pin them against one another is a big reason why this film was as entertaining as it was. Third positive. First Love has a few characters who pull the strings, behind the scenes, and attempt to provoke conflict for their own gain. This is something that I always find fascinating when it's done in film or television. As one example, my favorite character in Game of Thrones was Littlefinger. I just love seeing the conniving manipulator just put people in situations and set traps for them. You know what I mean? In First Love, we get multiple characters who try to work these conflicts in their favor. These yakuza conflicts and stuff like that. Always interesting to watch, regardless of whether or not their plan works or blows up in their face. Fourth positive, this movie has certain elements that were common in Miike's earlier films, especially the multiculturalism of urban Japan. Now, if you remember some of his earlier stuff, some of them involved displaced Chinese immigrants or people of mixed heritage who were having difficulty finding their way in Japanese life. You get some of those references in First Love, because the primary conflict is not between two yakuza groups. It's between a yakuza group and a triad group that's in Japan. So it's pretty interesting. You get our protagonists that actually interact with both groups of people. So that kind of gives you that multiculturalism angle to this, which I liked. Fifth, two of my favorite characters were actually played by supporting actors, Shota Somatani and Nao Omori. Shota we've seen around. I just did a review of Woodjob recently. He starred in that. And Nao Omori, I think, was Ichi the Killer back in the day, the actual guy who was killing people. So you'll recognize these guys. Now, these two are just as essential to the story as our two lead characters, who are played by Masataka Kubota and Sakurako Konishi, which is good. I like that you have almost like an ensemble cast here, because Shota and Nao balance out the interaction, and are actually, I think, more interesting than our main characters. The lead characters basically just ride the wave of chaos, but it's Shota and Nao that kind of set the chaos into motion. So I find them to be a little bit more interesting as characters, and we do spend quite a bit of time with them, which I really enjoyed. And speaking of the acting, it's solid overall. Obviously, Shota Somatani was kind of a highlight for me. He's good in this. I liked him a lot. Very entertaining. There's also a supporting actress named Becky, that's like her actress name, who plays the girlfriend of one of the drug runners. She's pretty entertaining as well. But the thing that surprised me about this film was the lead actor, Masataka Kubota. And I say this because I was not a fan of his portrayal of Light Yagami in the Death Note J-drama series, the TV show. I thought he was actually one of the weaker elements of that show. And I thought he was just okay in the recent Tokyo Ghoul live-action flick as well. But I genuinely liked his performance in First Love. He was good in this. So I may be warming up to him as an actor a little bit. And that happens sometimes in Miike films. Like, I was never really a fan of Hideaki Ito until I saw him in Lesson of the Evil. And then I became a fan. So, the sixth positive. The tones are balanced very well in this film. This movie takes itself seriously, for the most part, and it benefits because it never feels too silly. It does mix in some black humor, a little bit of wackiness, and some unrealistic elements, but overall, it feels pretty grounded and down to earth. Overall, I like that aspect of it. Sometimes movies will just get too wacky and they just kind of lose you, right? Seventh positive. Miike is on his game here in terms of direction and pacing. This is what I call like a purely entertaining film. Even when it's taking its time to kind of set up the conflicts and the characters, which it kind of does mostly during the opening half, it's still engaging to watch and interesting to look at and watch in terms of both the characters and the story itself. I have defended a number of Miike's films from the 2010s, but there will be a good number of people out there after they watch this film that will think that First Love is his best film since 13 Assassins. That's kind of something that I've read in some of the critic reviews, and I can see that being kind of a popular opinion after more people watch this. This is pretty solid. So if you're one of those people that's been disappointed in some of Miike's recent films, I say go out of your way to check this one out when you can, because I think there's a certain craftsmanship to it that makes it a crowd pleaser. And then finally, the violence is fun to watch. I mean, there's not much really in terms of precise choreography, in terms of the action, but, most of the fights are like scrappy brawls and like fisticuffs and stuff like that, one-on-one duels. And it's quite entertaining, though. My favorite set piece is probably the car chase shootout, because that's when the crap just really hits the fan. So there's a lot of positives to this film. Now, there are a few aspects of First Love that I think could have been improved upon. One thing that kind of stood out to me is that the lead actress, I wasn't really a big fan of her in this. Sakurako Konishi. I think she played her character in a somewhat repetitive manner. I found her, she has like a heavy breathing thing that she does too, because she's real, she's been basically screwed up mentally, let's put it that way. And but I found her heavy breathing to be a bit distracting and kind of annoying. I would have liked a more dynamic performance where she had multiple aspects. Now she does later on in the film a little bit, which is nice to see, but still I found her character to be a bit too whiny for my liking, just a bit too whiny. And then obviously the second thing is, if they did have a little bit more of a choreographed action to it, it might have kicked things up just a little bit more of a notch. Just a little bit more, but that's okay, because all the violence is pretty entertaining regardless. But I mean, overall, I enjoyed this movie quite a bit, and I very much look forward to watching it again when I get a chance. I think it's a nice return to form for Miike after the dreadfully boring Laplace's Witch, and then the merely decent fluff piece, that live-action JoJo's Bizarre Adventure film. Now, Well Go USA does have distribution rights in the United States. It currently has a limited theatrical release in New York and Los Angeles, I think. But the Wellgo USA website says that it gets a nationwide release on October 4th, which, in my opinion, the theater count is still going to be pretty small. But if you're lucky, it might show somewhere near you. So look out for it. And either way, check this out when you can. You know this is hitting streaming at some point, either later this year or early next year. So you'll get a chance to check this out, because most of Miike's stuff, there are exceptions, but most of it does get a pretty good release in terms of distribution. So check this one out. I recommend it. It's a good one. And as always, I'll see you next time.